want to talk to you guys today about a placement in the sky with Venus and Saturn conjunction that repeats the cycle every 913 years on the water of Aquarius. Now, this is really like esoteric because Venus, as I explained before in my other videos, was born from Saturn being castrated, and she came from the froth in the water where his testicles were thrown. Okay, so basically Venus is born from Saturn's testicles. So she was blown to the shore by the spring wind. Now, this is really important because this Saturn-Venus conjunction that we have in the year 2024 is aligning to the spring equinox. So this is really rare, and it only happens every 913 years. But first I want to get into the Pluto return aligning to the founding of the US. And recently Tropical has said it happened on February 22nd, last week. And I want to show you where Pluto was in the sky last week and then where it was on the founding. And I've mapped it out, and it's not even really 100% aligning to sidereal either. And I want to go over that and show you exactly when it does align, and it's going to blow your mind on what day it's actually happening. So let's get into it. So I drew a line from the mouth of Capricorn over to the tail of Sagittarius, and you can see that Pluto is just below that line on the time of the founding of the United States. Now, I found out recently from an astrologer that the signing was exactly at 5:10. Now, you can see here what Tropical is saying, that the Pluto return has happened. You can see that Pluto is above the line. It's not below where it was on the founding of the United States. Now, I think this is really important because before the Constitution was signed, the United States was in a war. It was the War of Independence. It was very divided, and it was about trying to get freedom from the British rule. There was a civil war because some were patriots and some wanted to stay with England and believed England could stay in control of the new citizens of the New World, because they tried to bring in this thing called the Stamp Act. And then the patriots were like, why should we pay the UK taxes when we're the ones here busting ourselves, trying to get this world going and trying to clear land and everything, and they're not helping us, so why do we have to pay them tax? So it was all about a tax. So that makes sense to me, because having the Pluto return right now, it doesn't feel like, oh, that everything is being resolved and there's this signing and it's all based on freedom. Right now we're in the thick of the division, and it makes sense to me that it's going to happen later. So I really wanted to map this out to really understand when it was going to happen. Now, when I put it into the chart of this sidereal astrology, it's bringing the conjunction on February 22nd in 2024. So it's like 2 years later, exactly to the date that Tropical is saying it's happening, right? So I was like, But when I went to the sky to really look at it accurately with stellarium, stellarium is the sky because I've matched it to going outside and looking at the sky. That's why I know stellarium is correct. And the charts and the wheels are all, it's just a mathematical equation, and it can be slightly off. So here you can see that in February in 2024, it's just crossed the line. It's not in the same spot as it was on the founding, which is a little bit below the line. And it's exactly matching the same as the founding of the United States on April 8th, 2024. Now, I don't know if you guys know what that day is. It's really important. It's the day of the second Great American Eclipse that makes the big X right across the United States, completes it, and creates the passing at the Silver Gate, this, the Silver Gate Arch of St. Louis. So it's really the Silver Gate of Taurus, which is the Isis, basically Venus's gateway, because Taurus is ruled by Venus and Earth, and she makes the pentagram, right, with the Venus-Earth conjunction. So that's why Taurus is so important, and that's why they created the Silver Gateway in St. Louis, because I do believe they knew that these two eclipses were going to cross the United States. And what is the X? And when you do it in the alphabet, it's the 24th letter, and this is happening in 2024, right? So originally, when I started my channel, this is what I was really focused on, was 2024, because of the Olympic logo is the Jupiter alchemic symbol in 2024 in Paris. And I knew, I kind of was like, intuitively, I knew that we had to get this second eclipse had to pass. So I've always been kind of like, okay, number 24 is really important, and I have it on my email, crystal-tyme 24, because I knew that that number was important. But now that I realize that the Pluto return is all aligning to this, this is really significant, because Pluto is fear. Until you can overcome your fear, you don't become the warrior that Pluto wants you to be. And he wants you to be interdimensional. He wants you to be invisible, wear the helm of Pluto, and be able to walk in two worlds, right? So, like, that's why he took Persephone. She's like sometimes in this world, sometimes she's not. She's in his world, in the Ternanog, or the the Shambhala state, where you're not really in the matrix, right? You're not part of the system. So I'm like, okay, so this is really, really important that this is happening 2024. So that's when it's going to become, I guess, the souls that have become the warrior that they've chosen to be and reject the system. That's when that will be in completion, in matching what happened in the United States 247 years ago. Now, here is the solar eclipse on April 8th in 2024. It's happening in Pisces on the right fish, which is the Christ consciousness fish. Neptune is, right there still, which is also Christ consciousness. And Venus is very close, to Neptune. And now Mars is in conjunction with Saturn when this is happening. So you've got the warrior in you, Mars, which is ruling Scorpio, which is also to do with Ophiuchus, right? So Pluto and Mars rule that doorway, and it's right in conjunction with Saturn on the water when this eclipse is happening. So that's pretty amazing. One day later, it's Unicorn Day on April 9th. And this is exactly 19 days later, the spring equinox. And the number 19 is affiliated with Jesus. Now, the number 24 on the periodic table is chromium. Now, chromium comes from rubies, hence the ruby slippers, and also it has a relationship to the rainbow. Now, if you look at the symbol here, it's like the Grateful Dead album cover where you have the wings and the skull, and this represents ascension. The X in Roman numerals is 10, which brings you to the 1 and the 0, which is binary code, and it's also, brings it down to the 1. And it's also the 24th letter in the Greek alphabet is omega, which is also the Libra symbol, right, for the constellation Libra. And I've talked to you about that, is how that is a portal, and we know that. And also that the Omicron is tied to that symbol, omega, right? So Omicron is really the original omega symbol in the Greek alphabet. So you see how it's all tying to this number 24. And just the fact that the Pluto return is aligning to that has totally, it's a game changer for me, okay? Because everything's about Pluto. Pluto represents your soul. So that's happening on April 8th in 2024, and then Pluto goes retrograde on May 2nd in 2024, and that's all aligning to the Beltane, and the Beltane represents the soul going on fire into the Phoenix. Now, the Ostara, which is all aligning to the spring equinox, is all to do with Easter, right? It's Oster, Ostara. It's the same etymology, but they took the pagan religion and then incorporated into the Christianity. So this is really important, the spring equinox, and this is when we have this alignment with this Venus and Saturn conjunction. So Pluto does go retrograde in May in 2024, and then he gets back to the same location of the signing in 2025 on January 24th. So I've always been looking for the ancient texts about Venus, right? So I found this is what blew my mind. The Sumerian and the Babylonians celebrated with high ceremony the cycle of Venus every 8 years when she rose as the morning star near the spring equinox. So, okay, she does it every 8 years, but she doesn't do it in conjunction with Saturn every 8 years. That happens every 913 years. So the cosmological story of Inanna and or Ishtar assisted them in the ceremonial engaging of the astronomical cycle of Venus. So part of the work of the shamanic astrology at this time is to reconnect with Venus' cycle, honoring and remembering how this cycle informs our experience. Each one of us is born with a particular phase of the Venus cycle, and we all experience a synodic Venus return every 8 years. This means the Venus returns to her original position with the Sun near your birthday at ages 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80, 88, and 96, and 104. Shamanic astrology recognizes the Venus return as one of the most significant cycles a person goes through, and the power of this cycle is maximized when we work with it consciously. So the 8-year synodic Venus return cycle is powerful initiation time intended to deepen our experience as well as to be part of the evolution of the divine feminine archetype energies. So what I find, this is great. Okay, every 8 years, yes, it's important for astrology, but it's deeper than that, because what they're saying that they were celebrating the Venus in her Lucifer stage, her morning star stage, which is happening right now. If you go out in the early dawn before the sun rises, you'll see Venus in her morning star phase. She comes up on the heliacal rising before the sun does. Okay, so they're saying that this is really important. So I went back in time and I was like, okay, when do we have Venus and Saturn in conjunction on the river flowing out of the Kumbha pots of Aquarius flowing over Earth? Because Saturn controls time. Saturn also rules Aquarius. And, this is to do with ascension, because Aquarius is freedom. He represents freedom because Uranus also rules Aquarius, which is the heaven planet, right? So Aquarius is Ganymede. He's the boy that delivers the nectar of the gods to Zeus, Jupiter, right? Jupiter, and that's Zeus. That's why they have Zeus as the Olympic symbol in 2024. And he decides not to give it to Zeus. That's my interpretation of Aquarius. He's saying, no, I want to free humanity, and I'm going to pour the nectar of the gods over the earth, and that's the purple rain. Okay, so it's the purple rain means you're reigning. You are now in reign. You are the queen reigning. Okay, so it's like that's another etymology with the word reign. It's purple because you've ascended. The color purple represents Venus as well. Okay, so the purple heart, it's bravery, it's Venus, it's the matching of blue and red, right? So you can combine the two dualities and get to the purple. So this is like, I was just like, whoa, You know, so going back in time, trying to see if there's other planets aligning. And yes, Jupiter ends up being also in Taurus when this is happening. So he's aligning to this cycle, this 913 cycle. And so is Mercury. He also shows up in the same place, always in Pisces, right beside the right fish, which I believe is Christ's fish. That's like the Pisces, circlet of Pisces, which I believe is the crown of Jesus. And it's the pentagon, which also relates to Venus, right? Because it's the pent. So I'm just like, whoa, this is crazy. This is happening, you know, every 913 years, and it's happening in 2 years from now. The vernal equinox is March 19th in parts of the United States, and then other places it's March 20th. So this famous painting of the birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli is with this spring wind, Zephyr, right? And so I knew that, I told you guys that, but I didn't know, you know, how it was all tying into the vernal equinox, the spring equinox. So this is why. And so this is why I'm like, if this is tying into this painting, so, you know, this is it. She's the morning star on the spring equinox. And this is, her birth is all to do with Saturn. So I'm like, oh my God. I had goosebumps when I, you know, just like the, you know, with the revelation of that, like this painting is telling us. So remember that Washington, D.C. is all aligned to August, right? When the Washington Triangle is aligning to the sky, when Virgo, who is like Aphrodite of the Virgin Mary, that she's really Venus in constellations, is aligning over Washington. So here they have a poem that ties into this painting. So the August gold wreath and beautiful Aphrodite, who's Venus, I shall sing to those domain, belong the battlement of the sea-loved cypress, where, blown by the moist breath of Zephyros, she was carried over the waves of the resounding sea on soft foam. That's Saturn's testicles foam, okay? The golden filleted Hora, who is the hours, happily welcome her and clothe her with heavenly raiment. Okay, so the reason I'm mentioning this is because I have to do another video about August, so the month of August in 2024. I'm going to do that in a separate video, but it's all aligning. Okay, and this is other painting of Pompeii, and it's also aligning to that. I don't want to make this video long. I want to make this a little bit shorter, and we'll do another video on how this is all tying into the month of August. So this spring equinox, we have Venus in her morning star stage, and she's in conjunction with Mars again, but now in Capricorn, which is like, ugh, you know, that's authority, and Mars is war, and it's male energies, and almost in combat with the feminine energies. And the fact that it's in Capricorn, that's going to be tough. And Saturn is in Capricorn as well, so he's really strong with authority. And then we have Jupiter and Mercury, which both rule the mutable cross, which is groupthink, also in conjunction. And then Neptune is the little kind of star there that's in between the Sun and Jupiter and Mercury. So this is what's happening right on the spring equinox. We always have the Sun in Pisces because we're in the age of Pisces, but it's always happening on this circlet of Pisces, right? That's really what happens. Now they say the age of Aquarius is when the Sun is no longer in Pisces on March 20th or 21st. It will be in Aquarius. Now I went forward in time, and that's not happening to the year 2400, in like it's 400 years from now. So I was like, okay, the age of Aquarius has to be something else. And the fact that it's all tied into the birth of Venus, I am convinced that this Saturn-Venus conjunction that's happening in 2024, it's the last one before the Sun moves into Aquarius on the spring equinox. It'll be the last one because 900 years from now, it'll be already, you know, the Sun will be in Aquarius. So this is the last one. So maybe it's the marker point of the age of Aquarius. So 2023, Saturn has moved into Aquarius on the spring equinox, but Venus is not in her morning star stage. She's now like in front of the Sun. So here it is. Last time it happened with Venus and Saturn on the water pouring out of Aquarius was 913 years ago. And you won't believe what year that was. That's crazy. Do the math because it's crazy. Okay, so now, remember I told you guys that we have the guided stars. There's 3 guided stars that go from the North Star, which is Polaris, and one's in Cassiopeia and 2 are in Pegasus, and this aligns it to the spring equinox, right? So this is why it's part of the equatorial grid that comes along, okay, and crosses the ecliptic from the North Pole. So it's guiding us to this, okay? It's guiding us to this information. That's why they're called the guided stars. It's to make you pay attention to this time, okay, of the spring equinox. And the yellow circles around the right fish, which is riding on the back of Pegasus, and that is the Pentagon, which I believe is the crown of Christ. And then Neptune is there in conjunction with the sun, which Neptune is the Christ consciousness. It's metaphysical, right? And it's healing. And it can also put you in a clouded fog if you don't want to see the truth. And then, you know, we have Venus and Saturn there. And Mars, her lover, is also in Aquarius, you know, which is all to do with freedom. Okay, which Mars is your really like your warrior flame in you, right? So he's in freedom state now. They're out of Capricorn, which is all to do with authority by the time we get to 2024. So we got, I really think this is aligning now. Like maybe the whole blood moon thing is all to do with, you know, when, I don't know, other people get freed, and that's all aligning to the Pi Day blood moon that's happening on Zabi Java star, which Einstein, you know, calculated the speed of light from, and it's also on his birthday. So maybe that blood moon is when the other people that have chosen the negative path of AI, and that's when they get freed. So that's what the blood moon is aligning to, the day of the Lord, right? So maybe this is more to do with aligning to Earth's energies and finding your own freedom out of the matrix. So that Pi Day blood moon is in 2025, March 14th, Pi Day. So back in time, we did have a Venus-Saturn conjunction on the spring equinox, but it wasn't quite on the water. And this was in 1346. And this is when I almost fell off my chair. It happened on 11/11. Okay, like this is so magical. It's always to do with Venus, right? Venus, and of course, Saturn is the keeper of the golden age. He's the keeper of time. He rules Capricorn, he rules Aquarius. You know, it's either authority or it's your freedom. He decides which way you go, right? So there you go. You know, it's just like, no way. 11/11? Who's been seeing 11/11 for freaking years? You know, it was more a few years back. I was seeing it all the time. So it was just like, pay attention. It's Venus. It's Venus's and Saturn cycle. It's the birth of Venus. That's what 11/11 is. The birth of love. That's what it is. So, of course, now I know the math. 913 years prior to that, Venus and Saturn were on the water again on the spring equinox. So you can see it's always aligning. But Mercury's always on the right fish as well. Yeah, so in 198, we have Mercury on the right fish. We also have the same placement of the lunar eclipse, well, the solar eclipse, sorry, with the moon in Pisces. That's where the one is happening in April 8th, 2024. The solar eclipse, it's exactly where that sun is. So it's repeating that as well. And Jupiter, Zeus, is in the Silver Gate. Okay, Bacchus is in Taurus as well. So it's always lying to Bacchus. Well, Bacchus isn't always in the same spot, but Jupiter is. Jupiter and Mercury are always in the same spot when Venus and Saturn do this conjunction. Again, 11/11. Jupiter is in Taurus now, not the Silver Gate of Taurus, but in Taurus, right by the Pleiades. And you can see Mercury on the right fish. Bacchus is in Capricorn. So Mercury is riding with the crown, right? He's to do with healing, right, Mercury? And he rules your voice, your throat, and he also rules your stomach, your gut, your service to others, Virgo. Okay, so Mercury is on the right fish with his crown, and he's on the back of Pegasus, right? The right fish is riding on the back of Pegasus. Well, guess what? Look at this famous artwork. It's Mercury on Pegasus. What's the chances of all this famous artwork aligning to this astrological alignment that's happening in 2024? It's just mind-boggling. It's not exactly 913 years. It's 912, 11 months, and 26 days. But the interesting part about the numerology is the number 224. Now, 224 happens to be the synodic orbit of Venus. Okay, so there you go. It's, again, 224 is Venus. Like, you know, what's the chances? What's the chances that the last time it happened was 1111, and now it's happening again in 224, and that's matching her orbit? Like, it's just mind-boggling, and it's all to do with the birth of love, right? It's just it just boggles my mind. But I've been looking for this pattern of, you know, something that's repeating in a huge cycle, all tying into Venus. And, you know, I thought it was more to do with Uranus. Now, it almost is, because Uranus's orbit is 83, 84 years. And 83 times 11 is 913. So Jupiter's cycle is like 11 to 12 years. So, but Uranus ends up shifting a bit. He's not always in the same spot, but Jupiter is. It even ties in an offhanded way to 9/11, because the previous prime to the number 913 is 9/11. Okay, so 911. So there you go. It's all to do with the numbers. Now, numerology number 24, it's huge, right? The Christ is the gospel, archives, 33 miracles, of which 24 were cures. 24 elders sat on 24 thrones. So it goes on and on and on. You guys can read through it, but I'm just like, it's really huge. And the next video I do is definitely tying the 33 to the 24. And that's kind of, it's crazy. And it's all tying into a celebrity. You guys can guess. Now here's a ton more significance of the number 24. It ends up going to our bodies. So here they're saying the thoracic cage of the human body is formed by 24 kos. So this is in 24 elements. The human body is composed of 24 elements, whose hydrogen and oxygen are the most abundant, with 63% and 25.5% respectively. So 24 ruins, you know, it's just, yeah, it's 24. It's that is an Anunnaki number, because their numbers are always 12 and 24. So they work by the 24 system, which is what's ruled everything, right? For thousands of years. So this amazing alignment that's happening on the spring equinox in 2024 is really tying to pagan tradition of Ostara spring equinox festival, right? And so this is when Venus is in morning star Lucifer stage, where you can see her in the morning. Now, I really believe that the ancient Babylonian Sumerian celebrations are really the key to it all, because the religions kind of got psyoped, and you know, it's really, they're not trying to help you really to connect to God. They want to be the middleman. And I find that going back to the really ancient texts, there's more truth in that. So if they were celebrating this, and it ends up turning into part of the pagan tradition as well. It's called Ostara. So Ostara is the spring equinox, and that's where Easter, like I explained before, aligning to. In the Beltane, that's when the sun is in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus and Earth, right? So that's an important, so it's very important. So it's always about Venus. Now, the names are also known for this holiday. They're called the Albine Ealer, Rites of Spring, Ostrea Day, so it's like kind of like Easter, Vernal Equinox, March Equinox, Spring Equinox, and then it's also known as the Lady Day and Bacchanalia Day. We're back to the rites of spring and how this all ties into the Fantasia movie. Remember, I kept saying it has to be spring, it has to be spring. And so I keep going like, okay, this is, which is more important, which is more important? But now we have Pluto return, we have the holiday of Bacchanalia, we have Venus in her morning stage, which is what the ancients celebrated. We have her with Saturn, which is the birth of Venus, which is the birth of love, all tied into this famous painting that everybody seems to be drawn to. And so I'm like, okay, there's too many things aligning to this, year. This is 2024 year. It's just too magical. Everything is just perfect. And when I put Ostera into the etymology, it comes out to austral, which is like south, right? So they're saying here, towards the dawn, okay, the waking of the dawn, tomorrow. To shine, it's also to austera, Easter, to shine, especially of the dawn. With swift through southeast, explained by diagonal position of the axis of Italy. This is all in ancient texts. So southeast is the wind, zephyr, right? So it's to do with the wind, the south wind, but it's a southeast wind. It's not just a south wind, it's a southeast wind. So yeah, so it's southern. So I'm just like, no way. So this all ties into aurora, and it's the spring. It's the rebirth. That's what happens in spring. So the pagan tradition, they go to Stonehenge on the spring equinox, and they dress up in red and white gowns, which is the rubetto again. Okay, so yeah, we're starting to see how this is all aligning to the spring festival. So was my intuition correct at the beginning of all this, that this is all aligning to the second eclipse? It seems like that's where it's all aligning to, and maybe the blood moons, like I said, it's more the one in 2025 on Pi Day, and I'm betting, now that this is the time, because we have to prepare emotionally, we have to prepare our bodies, we have to be willing to separate ourselves from the matrix. We have to wait for everybody else to have a chance to awaken with more drama and chaos. And this is going to be a long, drawn-out affair. I don't think it's going to be a quick, okay, it's just, we're here to help bring more stability to the earth, and we're here to help with people going through their crisis as more chaos comes. And that's part of our mission. That's why we came here. So it's not about just checking out and, getting out of here early. And I really do believe that it's really us learning how to connect to Mother Nature and trying to heal the ley lines and through our consciousness of the ancient ways, right? So going back to more the native ways of living. So we have to start to prepare and start to do this. So anyhow, I just think this is mind-boggling, and I'm going to tie this all into Kobe Bryant. Okay, so this is all tying into him because he was number 24. And I was talking to a client about all this, and she says, yeah, Kobe Bryant. And I was like, no way, that's right. So I have to put all that together, but I didn't want to attach it to this one because it gets too long. So list to you guys. I appreciate stuff that you send me. I know it's getting really chaotic out there, but I do think it's all a bit of a masquerade. I do know Ukraine has a lot of history of very volatile protests, and protesters that support Russia were always beaten. So, you know, the history there, I will drop a link. I have found a link to the whole history of Ukraine that Oliver Stone had done and ended up talking to Putin. And it was done quite a few years ago. So you can see the history of Ukraine if that is stressing you in any way right now. But I think it's all to help awaken the masses. Okay, so bliss to you guys. And if you want a reading, you know, I appreciate you guys that have, you know, supported me and my channel and taken readings. And I love talking to you. And I'm really excited because the website, the pages are all coming together and it's getting closer and closer to being finished. And I'm just like, oh, it's getting exciting. And then I can start to upload my new videos. So I think, you know, we're getting down to it, and it's all going to align towards spring. So, because everything's about spring and the birth of Venus, the birth of love, and the rebirth of our humanity. So, bliss to you guys. Love you. Bye.